Welcome back, guys. We're back at it once again. If you watched the last video, you know we started out trying to get the wipers installed, get them functioning, and that took a detour, mostly because of self-induced issues on my part. But anyways, we did end up making progress. We do have this body now married to this chassis, the 2007 chassis, so it does have suspension travel. It's no longer supported by the A-frame. Everything's on here the way it's supposed to be on here up to this point. But this video, we are going to get these wipers working. And how do I know that? Well, I'm just not going to post this video until these wipers work. So if you're not seeing this video on Sunday, it took a little bit longer than planned, but it's coming. But if you're watching this video, these wipers are working. Don't jump ahead. Don't go to the end. You have to see how this is done first. You can't cheat and just go to the end. But if you want to follow this build, like, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. But we're going to get going on this. I did kind of jump ahead. I started taking this cowl off. So it's pretty loose. I have to finish up the other side. You didn't miss anything with that. Just a bunch of spot welds that needed cut out. There's videos on how to cut out spot welds. But I do want to show you the other side. Just the only thing that's really, I want to say, important if you haven't taken one of these off before. So we're going to go over and take a look at that. All right. So here is the passenger side A-pillar. So this runs along the front window down to the cowl. They have these solder seams on both sides. And in order to get the solder out, I just took my handheld torch, heat this area up here. And you can soften this lead to the point where I would just scrape it out. And once I got down so far, I'd warm it up, take a wire brush or a wire wheel and just kind of scrape at it. And then that exposes this weld right here, which connects this one to, there's actually 3 layers here. So you got the A-pillar. You have this first layer, which is this piece that the cowl is spot welded to. And then you have your third layer here, which is the one we actually want to take off. So we're going to have to go through, cut all these welds, because they have them stacked on top of each other. If we look at the other side, and I push it down, you can actually see where you got the A-pillar. You have like the inner cowl piece that runs across, and then you actually have your cowl. But if you push that down, they're pretty much stacked right on top of each other. I'm going to go through, I'm going to start cutting that weld out, see if I can separate this. Now this is all pushed down, so if you cut too far, that's fine. It's all going to get welded. You're going to have to either put new lead in there or Bondo or whatever you decide to put in there. So this view here, you can actually see how they have them layered right on top of each other. This is the cowl I'm trying to take off. This is the piece that runs underneath the cowl that it gets spot welded to. And then this is your A-pillar. So these two pieces, they have like literally like right on top of each other. Just take your time, split them apart. If you're reusing this section, you really don't want to pry on it because you don't want to bend it, because then you'll stretch the metal. It's hard to get it back. Just take your time, go through, work it up, and eventually you'll get there. I think I got pretty much everything freed up. Oh yeah, there it goes. Yep, so I'm going to pull this cowl section off. We're going to take a look underneath it. Alright, let's take a look, see what we got under here. Alright, with the cowl section off, this is going to end up getting cut out and probably getting rebuilt, because I have to put the wiper motor down in there somewhere, I believe. And then all of this stuff is going to get rebuilt. I'm kind of regretting cutting this out. I may end up building that back up and maybe tying all of this back in. That's to be seen yet, but today we're doing the wipers, just the wipers. This here will come later, depending on how long this all takes. Maybe it's just me, but I like seeing this. Where the car was originally put together, it's still the original sheet metal. No rust, no nothing. You can see the exact shape, condition it was in whenever they put it together. It's also like that down here on the doors also. You can see the bare metal there. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Alright, the first thing I'm going to address is this rubbing on the inside when these go back and forth. You can see where it kind of rubs up right on the top of this right here. I mean, not a whole lot. Still something I need to address. If you're anything like me, you tend to overthink these things. Like I bought all this stuff. I bought a new rod, heim joints, couple clevis pins, some bolts, some nuts, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna rebuild that whole assembly, and you know what? Like, I've already made enough work for myself, so I'm just going to keep it simple. There's a couple of ways you can fix this. You can mark it, and you can actually put a brace on the top, and then relieve this bottom. Like, I actually even think that you have enough room where, like, if you run it all the way over both ways, you might even just be able to bend this spot here and bend it up, and then give yourself a little bit of clearance there. Alright, so here's what I came up with the new wiper arm. This is the one that came off of the car. You can see it's got this bend here, but as far as like this way, it's pretty straight. There's not a whole lot of contour. I'm assuming this had something to do with clearance in the 68. I'm sure it had to get around something. So what I ended up doing, instead of modifying this one, I just made a new one. I had that 1/2-inch pipe, and there wasn't a whole lot to it. It was actually a lot easier to do this than to modify that one. So what I did is, I cut it to length. I measured from center hole to center hole. I drilled it out so that it accepts the factory 68 bushings that go in here. This one's broke. I'll end up getting some replacement ones. Now I have to remember which way this goes in. So this one goes in this way. And then this one goes in the opposite way. So this is the reason why I had the one end zip tied, but this hopefully at least hold it in place so I can kind of get around working on everything else. But we're going to go ahead and stick this in there, make sure that it clears everything and there's no more interference issues. See if I can snap this in place while I'm recording. I hope I have this right. So this one fits on the top. Alright, so they just snap in. And then this one here should just snap in. Just like that. Now I'll get this wiper motor out of the way. Now see if I can get you in here a little bit closer. So all the clearance issues are fixed. You can see down in here where the issue was, it no longer hits. It doesn't even get close. No issues over on this side. It is a little squeaky. I might have drilled those holes a little on the small side, but that's okay. This is just proof of concept. I can go through and like fine-tune everything as we go. I just wanted to get that clearance issue fixed so I can move on to the actual wiper motor placement, which we're going to get to right now. Alright, first thing I got to do is I have to extend these wires, because these wires are not long enough to get over where I need them to over here. I've got these wires already made up off camera, so this shouldn't take too long. And before, the whole cringe factor, before anybody chimes in, I will never use these butt connectors to wire a car. This is not how it's going to be wired permanently. This is just proof of concept. I don't know how I'm going to run the wires yet, but this is not how it's going to be done finally. I see the comments coming already. I know the colors aren't going to match as long as I have the wires matched up at the end. That's the biggest thing right now. But I know those butt connectors, wrong gauge for that size wire, all kinds of things wrong with that. I know. Usually whenever I wire up a car, I peel off that plastic sheathing, and then I will crimp it. I will use shrink wrap on it. So just please bear with me. This is not how it's going to be done. Alright, so now that should get us over where we need to be. Just to test it, we're going to plug it in, make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. And it does. Alright, first issue I'm having is I don't have enough clearance on the underside of this or down on that heater box. I'm going to see if I can run this while I'm working the camera. But it ends up hitting the heater box, and then I get my thumb out of the way. It hits the heater box, and then it comes up and it hits here. So that's the first problem I'm going to have to figure out. This can be modified, but the more I raise this up to clear this box, I'm going to have less space for those fresh air vents to actually have a drain under them if I plan on keeping them, which I do at this point. Alright, after pondering for a bit and stealing parts off of Miss Amy Lee over there, I had to steal the battery and the wiper arm. So I ended up laying the wiper motor down. Nobody says it has to rotate, like vertical. It can go horizontal. It still works. And just to prove that, I took the wiper off so I could actually see like how far the wiper is going in relationship to everything else, like all the moving parts. So if I can set this camera up somewhere where it'll stay, maybe. So we're going to call this about the home position. It drops down a little bit, which I think I need to work on. Really not that big of a deal. Probably just the orientation of that wiper motor, but let me turn it up all the way. I mean, it's going all the way out to the edge of the window. So, proof of concept right now, relatively ugly. But, I'd rather do stuff like this instead of doing all the fine work just to find out that it doesn't work. Like the original idea I had for the wiper, if I wouldn't have figured any of that stuff out and built everything around it and then realized I had issues, I would have been a little bit more upset. So doing this, it's just proving that something works, and now we can improve upon what we have. Alright, first thing I'm going to have to address is this area right here. Because as it is, this wiper arm that runs the whole wiper system kind of flops around, and you can't have that because as it rotates back around, it's going to keep hitting this spot here. So I bought Heim joints somewhere. Actually, I bought all this stuff. Kind of feel like I'm back to reinventing the wheel. But these are going to be the same issue because they allow all this movement. But I ended up buying bronze bushing, a couple washers, a shoulder bolt, more steel. And there's a welding blanket I keep forgetting I have. I need to lay that down so I can quit welding over the wires. I got a drill and tap. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mount off. I'm going to cut this off, and hopefully it's not hardened down in here where they run it through and they weld it or they pinch it on there, however they do it. So I'm going to pull this off, see how that goes. Alright, as you see, I was able to cut off the old assembly that they used on the 2007. I cut it off. I did get it, if it focuses, I did get it tapped, so I can run that in. You have enough thread on the back side to put a nut on if you want, is like a lock washer, or a lock nut, jam nut, whatever you want to call it. So what I'm going to do now is this bronze bushing that I got, I want to mark it to the bottom of this shoulder. Come on. Yeah, so I want to mark it like right there. If I leave a little bit extra, I can trim it back later. I thought I was recording and I was going to show you a pretty slick way of cutting these. I only have one of these bushings, so I can't show you, but apparently I wasn't recording when I did last time. But anyways, I have this long lag bolt that has this smooth shoulder. All I did is I took this bushing, stuck on here with my mark, well, I cut my mark off. But anyways, I just had my finger just kind of slowly resting on the rest of the bushing that I cut off. And then I took my cutoff wheel, and as soon as you start cutting, this will rotate. And you'll get a pretty true cut all the way around it. You can actually see the mark on the lag bolt that it left. But now, if I take this and put it on here, you can see how accurate that actually was. And it's not perfect, but it's better than being all cattywampus. So now I can take this, screw it on here. And this surface here is actually going to be my bearing surface on here, so when it rotates, this here is going to act like a bearing and allow it to rotate once I get the assembly on there. Alright, I'll show you another handy little trick. These step drills actually come in pretty handy for deburring some of these tubes. Stick that in there, rotate it around. If you can see that or not, you got a nice little burr-free chamfer on that. Alright, I got my new bracket made. I made this out of 2 pieces of 1 inch by 1/8 inch just regular strapping. I cut them to length, I clamped them, I welded them. I cleaned up the welds a little bit so there's no sharp edges, nothing fancy. And then I took my step drill and I drilled halfway through on both sides to 1/2 inch, which is what the OD of this bushing is. And you want kind of a snug fit. You don't want to just drop in and slop around, which this is almost perfect because it starts in, but I'm going to have to force it. So what I can do is just get it started, just like that. I'll take a socket, stick on this back side, and then I will take my clamps and I will just push that bushing into place. There, so it finally snapped in. I'm going to open these vice grips up, clamp down a little bit more until it is just sitting flat on the back side of that arm. There. So now if you can see that bushing's all the way sitting down on this new arm. So what that does, that gives us a nice snug fitting for this bushing. This is going to be our wear surface that's going to be on that arm, wherever I put it. It's floating around here somewhere. Well, I don't know where that piece went. Hold on a minute. Alright, now that I located that other piece, we're going to put everything together. So we have the new bracket that I made that has the press fit bushing in it. I have an extra thick washer that I drilled out so that this center section slips over the bushing, like so. I have a smaller bushing on the top, and we're going to put it together. So this bushing is going to go down against this clean face here. I'm going to put on a thick washer that fits over top of that bushing. I'm going to put another bushing, or another washer on top of that thick washer, just so the head of this will actually rest on it. And once you screw it all together, if everything works out, which you kind of have to play with bearing thicknesses and stuff like that. So once it's all tightened, that's what you have. I mean, it's fairly snug. I mean, it doesn't have a whole lot of play. It's got some because you have the washer stack up, but overall it's fairly tight. But we're not done, because if you look at it like this, I have no room in here for that bolt that sits on the top of this to bolt it to the motor. So I'm going to have to cut it here, bend it up, cut it on the bottom, bend it back down, so it's kind of, well, basically the reverse of this shape here, just to give that bolt clearance. Alright, there is the finished piece, all ground down and cleaned up. Let me put this thing back together, stick it on that motor, we'll rotate it, make sure everything clears the way it's supposed to clear. Now, I probably went a little far with how far I bent that up, but that's alright. I'd rather have too much clearance than not enough. Alright, so there's that. It clears all the way. Yeah, and like I said, I probably went a little far. I don't know if you can see that or not, but plenty of clearance under there. Kick it around once. Alright, let's move on to the next thing, which I have to build that arm that goes from the end of this over to this pivot point on this wiper. I do have this arm already built from the last time whenever I was just testing the motor. I think I'm actually going to use this arm. All I did is I cut the welds off from where I originally had that test piece, so I know about where to stick it. So I'm going to throw a tack weld in there and we're going to give it a shot, see how it works. Okay, so it turned out I wasn't recording whenever I threw that tack weld on, but that's alright. I did have the welding blanket up in there, so I wasn't welding over the wires, but I wanted you guys to see it the first time. It's close on this, so I'm going to have to trim that down. I might even cave in the bottom of that just to give it a little bit clearance, but it is working. I'm going to throw the wiper arm back on. We're going to check the sweep of the wiper arm. Let me put this camera, set this camera back up because I'm not going to try and do this one-handed. Alright, so we'll call that the home position. Hopefully you guys can see that. I turn the wipers on. If you notice, it's not dropping down this time either, just because I adjusted the position of that arm. So whenever it comes down, That's as far as it goes. Before it used to drop down a little bit more than come up. Now it does not. Just coming all the way over to the edge of the window. I thought I had a little bit of a rubbing issue, but it's down here. I don't have that bushing on, so it's not sitting flat, so it moves around. I don't know if you can see that or hear it. I got the torpedo heater going. But that's all that is. So it's not actually rubbing anywhere. If we look at the inside, so that's where I had the rubbing issue before. I made this bar. It would rub down on that mount. Oh, yeah, keep my finger out of the way. But it is not rubbing there anymore. You can just see that arm over here just kind of bounce around a little bit. I think I still need to do a little bit of tweaking with that. It'll probably help when I put that bushing back into place. And I'm not gonna solid weld this yet until I get like all the mounting points in here done, because this motor may go this way a little bit, it may go this way. So, I mean, it may move around. I may have to adjust that length on that just a little bit. But as of right now, everything works. You can kind of see I don't have a whole lot of clearance whenever it comes to that cowl. I mean, it's close. So I'm probably going to have to build this section up a little bit just so I can clear that, or just kind of bring it up from this point here and then bring it out. But overall, pretty productive weekend. Wipers in, wipers working. Again, temporary. So I did end up putting that plastic bushing back on here so this thing's not slopping around. And it was squeaking, but it turned out it was the actual wipers on the 68. As soon as I sprayed those a little bit, I sprayed that one over there too. The squeak went away. So now you can hear it without the torpedo heater going. I'll get a view from the other side. So here you can see all the arms working. Nothing's rubbing, nothing's hitting. It's close up there. Now you can hear it hitting those burrs a little bit, but that's not a big deal. Once we go through and rebuild all of this, that will be addressed. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Functioning wipers. Now, for those of you who skipped ahead in the video, you can go back and see how all this was done. So you're going to end up watching it one way or the other. So, you know, a little creativity, couple hand tools, you can get a lot accomplished. Even though all of this still looks relatively ugly, we still have to work on that. The motor mount for the wiper motor, all that stuff. We have to rebuild all this, create some kind of way for the vents to stay intact and then still drain all the water out without getting into, the passenger compartment. But that'll be a project for another video. Till next time, like, subscribe, notifications, comment. I try to answer all the comments. Until next time.